gray morning settled over Grand Union Transit Hub like a sheet of cold glass. Buses hissed against the curb. Taxis crawled through impatient traffic, and hundreds of commuters moved with the same tired rhythm of people who believed the day ahead would be ordinary. Nobody looked twice at the woman crossing the main concourse with a silver case in her gloved hand. Her name was Vesper Hale, though within minutes, that name would be flashing across police screens, news alerts, and every phone in the city. She moved with quiet control, fully covered in a long cream trench coat, black gloves, tailored dark trousers, and polished boots that clicked softly against the transit hub floor. Her hair was pinned neatly back, her face calm, her eyes steady. She did not look like a criminal. She did not look like a woman running for her life. That was exactly why nobody noticed the danger moving with her. The case beside her leg looked like something a lawyer, banker, or executive assistant might carry. Clean metal, locked corners, no labels, no warning signs. But inside it was something far more dangerous than money. It held proof that could destroy men who owned judges, controlled security contracts, and buried people without leaving fingerprints. Behind her, 3 men cut through the crowd with careful distance. Damon Cross stayed closest, wearing a charcoal jacket and the hard expression of a man who did not like failure. Silas Mercer moved to the left, pretending to check his phone while watching every exit. Roycevale followed from the right, his eyes fixed on the silver case instead of Vesper's face. They were not street thugs. They were trained, patient, and used to getting what they were sent to recover. But Vesper already knew they were there. She saw Damon's reflection in the glass wall near the ticket machines. She caught Silas in the polished side of a coffee cart. She felt Royce closing in whenever the crowd thinned. Still, she did not speed up. Panic would make her visible. Fear would make her predictable. Vesper had survived this long because she understood that the loudest move was not always the strongest one. Outside the main doors, morning traffic continued, as if the city had no secrets. A delivery truck blocked one lane. A cyclist argued with a cab driver. A white van sat near the curb, plain enough to disappear into scenery. That van was not an escape. It was the first piece of a plan her enemies had never imagined she was brave enough to build. Vesper stepped through the sliding doors as the cold air hit her face. Damon quickened his pace. Silas shifted toward the curb. Royce reached inside his jacket, ready to move the second she broke pattern. But she never broke pattern. She walked straight to the white van, lifted the case smoothly, and slipped inside just as the side door opened. The van swallowed her into its clean gray interior. Around them, the city kept breathing, unaware that the woman everyone would soon fear had already beaten the first trap. As the door slid shut, Damon's phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. Vesper was never working alone. 72 hours before Vesper Hale vanished into the white van, she was sitting beneath the clean fluorescent lights of Crownbridge Security, staring at a screen that was never supposed to show her the truth. Crownbridge looked respectable from the outside. Its glass tower rose above the financial district with polished windows, private guards, and a lobby filled with quiet money. Politicians trusted it. Banks depended on it. Wealthy families hired it when they wanted protection, without questions. To the public, Crownbridge was a shield for the city. To Vesper, it had always been a workplace where silence was rewarded, curiosity was discouraged, and people like her were expected to stay useful but invisible. That was a mistake powerful men made with Vesper Hale. They believed quiet women did not keep score. She worked as a logistics analyst, the kind of employee executives barely noticed unless a delivery failed or a report was late. She tracked routes, checked transfer times, corrected system errors, and made sure sealed shipments reached the right locations. She was not a spy, not a criminal, and not someone chasing danger. She was simply observant enough to notice when certain packages moved through the city without client names, payment trails, or security classifications. At first, the irregularities looked like technical glitches. A missing route here, a duplicate delivery code there. Then Vesper found the same encrypted marker attached to private transfers involving judges, campaign donors, police consultants, and companies connected to billionaire Elliot Voss. The deeper she searched, the worse it became. Crownbridge was not just protecting important people. It was helping them move evidence, silence witnesses, and hide illegal payments beneath layers of legitimate contracts. One file changed everything. It linked Mayor Callan Reeve to an emergency security order that had never been publicly approved. Another file showed Elliot Voss funding private enforcement teams through shell companies that appeared harmless on paper. The most disturbing records were the sealed package transfers tied to people who had disappeared shortly after threatening to testify. Vesper understood the danger immediately. Reporting it through normal channels would be useless because those channels were already contaminated. The same people signing the warrants, managing the investigations, and controlling the city's security response were connected to the files on her screen. Her only safe contact was Marina Wells, a systems technician with sharp instincts and a loyalty Vesper had earned over years of quiet kindness. Marina checked internal access logs and discovered something that made Vesper's blood turn cold. Crownbridge had already created a false trail around Vesper's account. Her login had been copied. Her digital signature had been attached to restricted movements. A crime was being built around her before she even knew she had become the target. Vesper did not break down. She did not scream. She understood that fear would waste a few hours she had left. That night, after most of the building emptied and the executive floors went silent, Vesper entered Crownbridge Restricted Archive with silver case in her hand. She copied transfer records, payment trails, camera stills, and sealed reports, building the only weapon strong enough to fight the men who had already chosen her as their scapegoat. While copying a final file from Crownbridge Restricted Archive, a red security light suddenly flashed above the door. The red security light washed the archive door in warning, but Vesper Hale did not freeze. She had already learned that panic was a luxury only safe people could afford. Her fingers moved quickly across the terminal, pulling the last encrypted file into the silver case, while Crownbridge silent alarms sealed the floor around her. She knew the building better than the executives who owned it. For years, they had treated her like part of the furniture, never imagining she had memorized service corridors, blind spots, badge delays, and maintenance routes. That invisibility became her advantage. She slipped out through a narrow utility stairwell seconds before two armed security officers reached the archive, but the escape had already been poisoned. Crownbridge's cameras did not show the truth. They showed what powerful men wanted the city to believe. By the time Vesper crossed into the alley behind the tower, edited footage was already being prepared, time-stamped, and attached to a criminal report with her name at the center. Before Vesper could expose the truth, her enemies exposed a lie so powerful that the entire city would believe it. By sunrise, Crownbridge released an emergency statement claiming that Vesper Hale had stolen classified city security data and planned to sell it to an unknown buyer. The report called her unstable, dangerous, and highly trained, even though she had never carried a weapon in her life. News anchors repeated the words with polished seriousness. Social media turned her photograph into a warning. Strangers who had never heard her name before breakfast were afraid of her by noon. Her apartment was raided while she watched from across the street beneath the hood of a borrowed coat. Officers carried out her laptop, storage boxes, old work files, and framed photos from her hallway. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her phone service was cut. Her building access vanished. In less than 6 hours, the city erased every normal piece of her life and replaced it with a version of her built for public hatred. That was the cruelty of the frame-up. Crownbridge did not need to prove she was guilty. It only needed to make everyone afraid enough to stop asking questions. Inside police headquarters, Detective Rowan Pike studied the official report with a quiet frown. The case looked too perfect. The timeline was too clean. The warrant authorizing Vesper's arrest had been prepared before Crownbridge claimed to discover the theft. Rowan had spent too many years around real criminals to trust a story with no rough edges. While Rowan questioned paperwork, Damon Cross received his own orders from Crownbridge Private Command Channel. Silas Mercer would monitor cameras. Royce Vale would pressure contacts inside Dispatch. Damon would recover the silver case before it reached federal hands. The instruction was simple and cold. The package mattered more than the woman carrying it. Vesper had expected them to move fast, but not this fast. She used an old emergency signal to reach Marina Wells, who confirmed the worst truth of all. Crownbridge was not only hunting Vesper. It was shutting down every legal path that could clear her name. That was why the transit hub plan became necessary. The gray morning, The silent walk, the waiting white van, and the three men trailing behind her were not random pieces of chaos. They were the first move in a delivery route designed to carry the truth beyond the reach of the city that had already condemned her. As Vesper's van pulled away from Grand Union Transit Hub, a police helicopter turned directly toward her route. The police helicopter swept over the avenue behind them, its blades chopping through the gray morning air as the white van slipped into a narrow delivery lane between two office towers. Inside, Vesper Hale sat still with a silver case secured against her side, her gloved hand resting on the lock as if it were the only thing keeping the city from collapsing into lies. The driver, Knox Alder, kept both hands tight on the wheel. He was not a criminal, not a professional getaway driver, and not the kind of man who enjoyed danger. He had once been an ambulance dispatcher with a family, a mortgage, and a life nearly destroyed by a corrupt medical billing scheme. Vesper had found false records years earlier and quietly helped expose the people responsible. She never asked for payment. She never reminded him of the debt. Now Knox was paying it back in the only way that mattered. Vesper escaped the first trap, but now every street camera, checkpoint, and stranger in the city could become her enemy. Her face appeared on a news alert across Knox's dashboard screen before he shut it off. The headline called her armed and dangerous. The photo they used was from an employee badge, clean and emotionless, chosen to make her look cold. Vesper stared at it for only a second. She knew how easily a face could be turned into a weapon when the right people controlled the story. Outside the van, normal life continued with terrifying indifference. A mother lifted a child into a bus. A man balanced coffee and a briefcase. Construction workers laughed near a blocked sidewalk. None of them knew that one glance, one phone call, or one moment of fear could hand Vesper back to men trying to bury her. Knox changed routes without warning. He cut through service roads, passed behind grocery docks, rolled slowly through school zone traffic, and avoided intersections where police cruisers had begun to gather. Every few blocks, another alert flashed across public screens. Every few blocks, the city seemed smaller. The federal drop point was supposed to be inside the old courthouse mailroom, a forgotten intake site used for protected evidence transfers. If Vesper got the case there, local officials could no longer control the chain of custody. That was why Crown Bridge could not let her reach it. Behind them, Damon Cross followed in a black sedan, his jaw tight with frustration. Silas Mercer tracked traffic cameras from a command tablet, feeding Damon updates through a private channel. Royce Vale leaned on contacts inside Dispatch, twisting official police movement around Crown Bridge needs. The hunt no longer looked like law enforcement. It looked like a city being operated by invisible hands. At headquarters, Detective Rowan Pike saw the same pattern forming across his monitors. Crown Bridge agents were not assisting police. They were directing them. Checkpoints appeared before formal orders. Roadblocks shifted before Dispatch approved them. Rowan's doubt hardened into suspicion. Then Knox slowed near the bridge. Ahead, officers were stopping vehicles one by one beneath flashing lights. A helicopter circled beyond the river. Turning around would look suspicious. Moving forward would trap them. Vesper made the decision before Knox could speak. She lifted the case, adjusted her coat, and stepped out near a crowded public market beside the bridge approach. She disappeared between fruit stands, morning shoppers, and delivery carts, becoming one more covered figure in motion. For 3 seconds, it worked. Then a child looked up at a news screen above a coffee stall, pointed toward Vesper, and recognized her face. The child's voice cut through the market, louder than any alarm. One small finger pointed toward Vesper Hale, and in an instant, the crowd around her changed. A second earlier, she had been another woman moving between fruit stands, coffee carts, and morning shoppers. Now she was a face from every news alert, the woman the city had been told to fear. Vesper did not run. Running would confirm the lie. Running would make every phone camera, every nervous shopper, and every security guard believe Crown Bridge version of her. So she lowered her chin, tightened her grip on the silver case, and moved with controlled purpose through the crowded aisle. Her greatest danger was not the men chasing her. It was the crowd that had been taught to fear her. People began stepping back, as if guilt could spread through the air. A vendor froze with a paper bag in his hand. A woman lifted her phone and started recording. 2 men near the coffee stall whispered while staring at the news screen above them. The false story had done its job. It had turned ordinary strangers into walls. Vesper used her reflections in shop windows to track the movement behind her. Damon Cross entered through the north side, scanning faces with cold focus. Silas Mercer moved near the security booth, pretending to help officers while quietly watching the exits. Royce Vale cut through the produce section, his eyes searching for Case. Then Vesper saw Marina Wells. Marina wore a delivery jacket, a baseball cap, and a calm expression that did not match the danger around her. She pushed a cart stacked with sealed boxes, blending into the working rhythm of the market. To anyone else, she looked like staff. To Vesper, she looked like the only person brave enough to walk into a trap on purpose. The exchange happened in motion. Vesper passed close beside the cart, shifted the silver outer case beneath a hanging row of produce bags, and kept walking with the smaller inner container hidden beneath her coat. Marina took the outer case without looking back and turned toward the delivery exit. Roy saw the movement and followed her immediately. For several seconds, the plan worked. Damon's attention split. Silas redirected security toward Marina's path. The crowd's fear created noise, confusion, and cover. Vesper moved toward the courthouse route, knowing every second Marina bought her mattered. Detective Rowan Pike entered the market from the street side and stopped near the security booth. He saw Damon's men moving with too much coordination and too little legal authority. They were not behaving like officers pursuing a public threat. They were behaving like hunters protecting a private secret. Near the delivery exit, Marina was grabbed. She did not fight wildly. She clutched the decoy case as if it held the evidence, and let Crownbridge believe they had won. Vesper saw from across the aisle, and for the first time that morning, pain broke through her calm expression. Marina was being taken because she had chosen loyalty over safety. Vesper wanted to turn back, but turning back would waste Marina's sacrifice, destroy the evidence, and hand the city back to the men who had already rewritten the truth once. She forced herself forward. Then Damon's voice moved through the security radios, ordering every market exit sealed, and Vesper realized courthouse route had been compromised. The market noise faded behind Vesper Hale as she forced open a narrow service door beneath a rusted municipal sign. Above her, panic spread through crowded aisles, blocked exits, and security radios. But below the street, the city became colder and quieter. Old utility lights buzzed along the concrete tunnel, casting pale reflections across pipes, dust, and forgotten maintenance tracks. Vesper moved quickly, but her thoughts stayed with Marina Wells. Marina had drawn the chase away from her. Marina had let Crownbridge believe she carried the evidence. Marina had paid the price for a plan that only worked because someone was brave enough to become the decoy. The weight of that sacrifice pressed harder on Vesper than the case in her hand. When Vesper finally opened the case, the truth inside was worse than even she imagined. She knelt beside a cracked concrete wall and unlocked the false compartment hidden beneath the metal lining. Inside were several encrypted hard drives, folded ledger pages, printed transfer maps, surveillance stills, and a sealed packet marked with federal case number. Vesper had copied the files in a rush, but now she saw how deeply Crownbridge had infected the city. The records proved the company was not simply moving illegal packages. It was helping powerful clients erase witnesses, redirect police attention, hide payments, and bury crimes behind official-looking security operations. Every transfer had a coded route. Every route had a protected name. Every protected name connected to someone the public trusted. One file linked Mayor Callan Reeve to a fake emergency order used to clear several city blocks before a whistleblower disappeared. Another connected Elliot Voss to private enforcement teams disguised as security contractors. The teams were paid through shell companies, then deployed whenever money, testimony, or political damage needed to vanish. Then Vesper found the file with her own name, her employee number, access pattern, copied signature, and staged digital trail had been prepared weeks before she entered the archive. Crownbridge had not framed her because she discovered the truth. They had chosen her first, then waited for her to find enough to make the lie believable. That realization hit harder than fear. She had not stumbled into danger. She had been placed inside it, studied, isolated, and shaped into the perfect scapegoat by men who believed her life was small enough to ruin without consequence. Above the tunnel, a camera feed blinked red, then suddenly went black. Vesper understood the meaning immediately. Detective Rowan Pike was no longer only questioning the case. He was interfering with it. Somewhere inside the system, someone had just opened a narrow path for her to keep moving. Her phone vibrated once through a hidden emergency channel. The message came from Marina's device, likely sent before she was captured. It contained no explanation, only a location: Harlow Station, Platform 9. Vesper studied the old transit map painted on the tunnel wall. Platform 9 connected to a protected courier train, leaving the city within minutes. If the evidence reached that train, it would pass beyond the reach of Crownbridge, local police pressure, and every corrupted official trying to stop her. She sealed the case, rose from the tunnel floor, and climbed toward the station exit. As Vesper reached Harlow Station, she saw Elliot Voss waiting for her with a calm smile. Harlow Station opened around Vesper Hale in a rush of daylight, steel, and movement. Commuters crossed beneath glass ceilings. Train announcements echoed to platforms, and security cameras watched from every corner. It looked like an ordinary morning station, crowded with people trying to reach jobs, meetings, schools, and lives untouched by the war hidden beneath the city. Then Vesper saw Elliot Voss. He stood near the center of the main concourse in an expensive navy suit, surrounded by private guards who blended too cleanly into the crowd. His posture was relaxed, his expression calm, almost amused, as if he had not come to chase her, but to welcome her into a trap he already owned. Elliot Voss did not hide in the shadows, because men like him believed they owned the light. That truth struck Vesper harder than his presence. He was not afraid of being seen. He trusted his reputation more than other men trusted locked doors. To the public, he was a billionaire investor, a civic donor, a man whose name appeared on hospital wings and scholarship funds. To Vesper, he was a hand behind sealed transfers, buried witnesses, and the false story that had turned her into a wanted woman. Across the station, Damon Cross entered through a side gate, moving fast now, no longer patient. His earlier control had burned away. He had failed at the transit hub, failed in traffic, failed at the market, and now desperation sharpened every step he took. Vesper knew she had three choices. She could run for Platform 9 and hope to beat them. She could surrender and gamble that Rowan Pike could keep her alive. Or she could make the truth so public that even Elliot Voss could not bury it before the crowd saw his real face. She chose the most dangerous path. Vesper moved toward the center of the concourse, where the station's departure screens hung above hundreds of witnesses. Her hand closed around an emergency upload trigger Marina had built into the evidence drive. Marina had prepared it as a last resort, a way to force the files onto every connected screen if the original route failed. Detective Rowan Pike entered moments later and saw the trap forming. Officers near the gates were receiving orders that did not come through official dispatch. Crownbridge guards were pushing closer to Vesper while pretending to protect the public. Rowan stepped between her and the nearest officers, not openly declaring loyalty, but buying her the second she needed. Vesper activated the upload. The departure boards flickered. Train times vanished. In their place appeared payment trails, altered warrants, hidden transfer routes, Crownbridge security logs, and images of private teams moving sealed packages through city facilities. The crowd shifted from fear to confusion. Phones rose again, but this time they were not recording Vesper as a criminal. They were recording the proof. For the first time, Elliot's calm expression cracked. Then Marina's backup message appeared across the largest screen, revealing that if Vesper was harmed, the full archive would release nationwide. The upload climbed to 90% before Crownbridge technicians began cutting the station connection. Vesper turned toward Platform 9, knowing the hard drive still had to reach the departing courier train. As the train doors began to close, Damon grabbed Vesper's arm inches from the platform edge. Damon cross-caught Vesper Hale's arm just as the courier train doors began to close, his grip hard enough to pull her backward from the platform edge. For one terrifying second, the silver case shifted in her hand, the evidence inside trembling between freedom and silence. Around them, commuters froze. Security officers surged forward. The station screens continued flashing Crownbridge records above the crowd, turning Harlow Station into the one place powerful men could no longer control the story. The city had wanted Vesper in handcuffs, but by the end of the morning, The same city would need her testimony to survive its own truth. Damon tried to drag her away from the train, but desperation had made him careless. He was no longer a shadow in the crowd. He was a man attacking a hunted woman in front of hundreds of witnesses, public cameras, and officers who were beginning to understand they had been used. Detective Rowan Pike moved before anyone else could. He stepped between Damon and the closing doors, twisted Damon's wrist away from Vesper's coat, and forced him down against the platform barrier. The arrest happened in full view of the crowd. Officers nearby hesitated, stunned that Rowan had openly rejected the corrupted order they had been following all morning. That hesitation gave Vesper the only chance she needed. She pulled the evidence package from the case, reached through the narrowing gap of the train door, and slid it into the secure courier mail slot marked for protected federal transfer. The compartment locked automatically. A second later, the train pulled away from Platform 9, carrying the final proof beyond Crownbridge's private reach and outside the city's contaminated chain of command. Elliot Voss tried to disappear into the crowd, but the crowd was no longer afraid of Vesper. They were watching him, phones turned toward his face. Reporters near the station entrance pushed past security lines. The screens above continued showing payment trails, altered warrants, hidden transfers, and the names of officials who had treated the city like property. By late morning, the headlines began to change. The woman described as the most wanted criminal in the city became the witness at the center of a corruption case too large to bury. Vesper was not released into celebration. The ending was not that simple. Federal agents took her into protection, not as a fugitive, but as a material witness whose testimony could bring down Crownbridge, Mayor Callan Reeve, and the network behind Elliot Voss. Marina Wells was found alive after Rowan shared leaked coordinates from Crownbridge's holding site with federal investigators. Her rescue did not erase what had happened, but it proved that loyalty had not been wasted. Mayor Reeve faced emergency hearings. Crownbridge executives resigned before subpoenas reached their offices. Elliot's empire began cracking under the weight of evidence he had once believed no ordinary person would ever carry far enough to matter. Vesper did not become cruel. She did not become hungry for power. She became impossible to erase because she refused to let fear rewrite the truth. From the back seat of a federal vehicle, she watched the city move through another gray morning. Traffic flowed. Buses stopped. People crossed streets as if everything was normal. But beneath the surface, the city had changed. Then Rowan received one final encrypted file, and the name at the top belonged to someone Vesper once trusted completely.